there's polling out, there's political discussions about old Labor legends like Paul Keating, and there was that very interesting front bench, Gillard and Rudd, and a knife in the middle. So let's bring in the political editor at the Australian newspaper, Denis Shanahan. I'll tell you what, Denis, that was one for the ages, wasn't it, yesterday at Labor's launch? It was typical Labor, all their luminaries. I often say, you know, Labor hate like no one else, but they love like no one else. All the luminaries were there on the front bench, and billions of your money out the back door. Labor, 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 Labor.
Yes, it was pretty much a quintessential Labor launch. All of the leaders were there, including those who have crossed swords or knives in the past. And they're trying to do what they can to help the Labor cause. Even Bill Hayden was there, a somewhat ill Bill Hayden, but it was all part of the whole Labor razzmatazz for a campaign. And of course, the danger of having them there was that everyone remembered their own chaos and division from the years involving Bill Shorten getting rid of both of them. But of course, the larger point for Labor was to say, look, that's in our past. We actually have had Bill Shorten as our stable leader for the last almost 6 years. And so it was about saying to the Liberals, you put Malcolm Turnbull and Tony Abbott next to each other in your front row at your launch. So it was a pretty pointed challenge from Bill Shorten. But as far as the substance went, Bill Shorten did make, again, no apology for hitting the top end of town. In fact, he's trying to turn that into a big strength as he appeals to those on lower incomes, lower wage earners, people who are stuck by wages that aren't moving up, as well as big spending for Medicare, health, schools, education. So it was a big spending launch in good old-fashioned Labor style.
And I have to say, I thought Chloe Shorten was great on her feet. I think she's the best campaign asset Bill Shorten has by far. I had a mention at the start of the program, Denis, about the comments from Penny Wong, a little men with little ideas. I thought there's no way a conservative man could say that about Labor women. I thought that was a place you don't want to go in a campaign launch. I thought it was completely arrogant and unnecessary. And then there was a comments today, obviously, yesterday from Paul Keating. I mean, the idea that our intelligence and security agencies get called nutters by someone with the standing of a former Prime Minister. We know 14 or 15 terror attacks and plots in this country have been foiled since 2014. We then hear him talking up the great state of China. Our intelligence agencies are nutter. China is somehow this great state. Well, we all know he's been on the payroll since 2016 as an advisor to one of their international banking organisations. This is a distraction I don't think that Labor needed, is it?
It was certainly a distraction that Labor didn't want. And look, Paul Keating, as always, has something to say. Given the opportunity to sit in front of a television camera, he took it, and he obviously diverted Bill Shorten today. Chris Bowen at the press club had to say no. They would take the advice of the security agencies. They would consider it normally and respectfully, as anyone would expect in the National Security Committee of Cabinet. And so, yes, they all had to play a very flat bat to what Paul Keating had said.
Yeah, but he's on the payroll.
It didn't help anyone.
He's just like Sam Dastyari. These guys are on the payroll.
Well, that's somebody actually even raised the issue of whether he would, under the new laws, have to declare his interests. But look, I think that Paul Keating won't last long as a distraction. It didn't help Bill Shorten today, but like Kevin Rudd and Julia Gillard, is very much yesterday's man as far as the current campaign is concerned.
All right, well, let's get into the campaign. I'm interested in where you see it going over the next fortnight. It is the final fortnight. We do know, however, pre-polls have been open now for all of last week. At the end of the week, they were up 200,000 on where the pre-polls were after the first 5 days of polling in 2016. We also have a very strong news poll that tells us yet again that this is a neck and neck fight. Yes, Labor are still ahead, 49-51, but the numbers are moving south in terms of personal ratings for the leaders. Now, how relevant is that, do you think, at this point in the campaign? Would you want to see, if you were the Liberal Party strategist, the party ahead more, or would they be happy to be so competitive considering where they were 6 months ago at this stage, Denis?
Oh, look, I think everyone would prefer to be in front than from behind, but they are obviously very competitive. The two-party preferred has come in closer in news poll since the beginning of the campaign. It's now at 51-49. The coalition can win with that sort of a two-party preferred in a very close vote. And the primary vote has gone down again for the Labor Party. Now, what all of this combines to mean is that what we're actually facing is no great mood one way or the other in the electorate. The two-party preferred support's not really moving. Primary support's gone down for both parties, although the coalition's is higher than it was at the beginning of the campaign. And so what we're looking at is an electorate that hasn't either switched on, is not happy with either side, particularly not happy with the major parties. And what we're actually seeing is the creation of a patchwork quilt of seats around the country. And we can see, as you've already set out, with the leaders going to these marginal seats, repeatedly going back to Lindsay in New South Wales, Tasmania, that there are a lot of seats in play, and we may not know till the night which seats fall which way. And some people are telling me on both sides that we could actually see a situation where one seat could fall and another seat could go the other way because there isn't this general mood for change.
Yeah, that's interesting, and that mirrors the result. Remember, in 2016, you had Luke Howarth's seat of Petrie, 0.03 in terms of its margin, so absolutely a sliver of a margin. He actually increased out 0.6, I think it was in the end, but Longman next door, 7 or 8% seat fell. Such were the vagaries of where people voted in the end. So it'll be a very interesting election night because it will go down to the wire in a number of seats, and with the counting of pre-polls and postals and things like that, we may not know results in some of these key seats on election night. How do you think the two leaders play it from here? This has been a very presidential campaign, Denis. We saw, out of his witness protection today, Chris Bowen was in a debate with Josh Frydenberg. We've really not seen much of the other front benches on either side. Is this going to stay a contest between Shorten and Morrison, do you think?
Oh, well, look, to be fair to Bill Shorten, he has had his other front benchers with him, certainly not Chris Bowen since that terrible day when they had to take down their economic policies and say they were being updated, and Chris Bowen has been sidelined. It's interesting to note that at the launch on Sunday, Bill Shorten nominated his 6 key front benchers, and he got them all to stand and he named each of them. Chris Bowen, the putative treasurer, was the last to get the nod. And so who was put before him? Health, education, industrial relations, Brendan O'Connor, and of course, Mark Butler with climate change. So Labor has been avoiding the economic argument. They've been avoiding the economic numbers, and they're trying to keep it that way. I think Bill Shorten, the costings, Bill Shorten's promised we'll see Labor's costings later this week. That has the potential to change the momentum in the campaign, one way or the other. And I think Bill Shorten has made it clear that after his big launch, we won't see too many more billion-dollar giveaways, but what we'll see is that constant repetition that Labor will provide more than the coalition, and it's time for change. Scott Morrison, he's going to concentrate on economic management. It is remarkable. We're now in the 4th week of the campaign, and the Liberals have not changed one iota from their general economic management message. They have given out very little as far as giveaways are concerned, and I think we'll see on Sunday in Melbourne Scott Morrison giving away what little the coalition is prepared to offer voters in tax cuts and various other goodies. And so I think we'll see that final week of the coalition trying to race towards the tape, concentrating on Bill Shorten and with a final flourish of good news.
Denis Shanahan, best in the business. Thanks very much for your time tonight.
Thanks, Peter.